Some of the main subtitles I will touch based on is what is going on in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is definitely having a lot of more trauma going on, especially with the citizens crying on social media and some of the devastating that are still happening according to the war. So in case you haven't heard any updates about Ethiopia yet, they are still going through a lot of struggle as far as the war continue to go on and the division among the tribes, and also the president of Ethiopia not being able to agree with the Tigray rebels. And then secondly, we're going to touch on about what's going on in the Horn of Africa with the inflation, the food, all these famine that's going on around the world. As you've been hearing a lot about climate change, the Horn of Africa is facing a whole lot of challenges as well. And then thirdly to that, there's still a lot of kings and queens going around. So there's a huge celebration going on in South Africa, and this was about 2 weeks ago. So we want to cover on that and give you guys updates on how it went, because it's still pretty interesting in our modern days to celebrate our crown kings and queens. And I find that really interesting as well. And lastly but not least, we're going to give you guys some entertainment background of what's been going on with New York Fashion Week. So for many of you that don't know much about New York Fashion Week, I'm going to give you guys the insight of what New York Fashion Week is all about. So with the airstrike in Ethiopia about 2 weeks ago, the bombing became a renewal violence in the region of northern Ethiopia, bringing an escalation fighting between the government forces and the Tigrayan rebels on the region's southern border. About 4 people, including 2 children, were killed and 9 wounded in the Ethiopian airstrike on Mekele, the capital of the rebel region of Tigray. According to an affiliate at the city's main hospital, based on the AFE report by the medical doctor, Dr. Kibram, hospital in Mekele, have received 13 patients, 4 of whom have died at arrival, and 2 of them were children that have died as well. A message from the Mandia Gebrehewit, a spokesman for the rebel authorities, in a midday, this is what he has to say, in a midday, an aircraft dropped bombs on a residential area and a kindergarten in Mekele, which is one of the children's school, unfortunately. Civilians were killed and injured. 2 humanitarian sources have been informed of an airstrike in Mekele, but gave no details on casualties. So media is still quite rough in Ethiopia, where a lot of journalists are not able to report on what is going on in Ethiopia. And it's kind of sad to think of it with the fighting that is going on, how many people are crying and dying still in the war of Ethiopia, especially in the Tigray region as well. Shortly afterwards, the federal government announced, although it remained fully prepared to hold unconditional talks with the rebels, it intended to carry out actions targeting military forces opposed to peace. So there's supposed to be a peace talk going on there. The peace talk is still being tossed around. It called on the population living in Tigray to stay away from areas where rebel military equipment and training facilities are located. The resumption of fighting is worrying the international community in hopes of peace negotiations will be dashed. Many countries and international organizations on Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, led by the United Nations, the United States, and the European Union, have called for a peaceful resolution to the 21-month conflict. Now, whether this peace talk will take place or not, it has been dashed around so many times that there's starting to become a loss of hope in that, especially for the people of Ethiopia. Now, the citizens themselves, of course, we all love to live a normal life, live together and among each other. But in this time, it has been a really high escalate of politics talk, which is dividing more people. And the government officials need to figure this out, as the international have gotten involved to say, yeah, it is a 20-month conflict. That's been gone too long. Says November 2020, for a little recap, the war in the northern Ethiopia has killed several thousands of people. displaced more than 2 million and plunged hundreds and thousands of Ethiopians into a near starvation conditions, according to the United Nations. This is one of the horrific warfare weapon that is used in war a lot. And as the Prime Minister is using that, blocking aids to get into the Tigray region, one of that biggest horrific warfare is starving the people. Starving the people, we come to realize it is a part of war. And that's a pretty serious humanitarian crisis there, and it's quite scary as well. The end of March, the delivery of humanitarian aid by road to Tigray for 3 months of interruption, which means they have been blocked. They have not been getting their aids or their food, the things that the normal citizens need through this hard time. Since the end of June, the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan rebels have repeatedly stated their willingness to enter into peace negotiation, but continue to disagree on the modalities. The federal government wants immediate talks without preconditions. Under African Union, the rebels are demanding the restoration of electricity, telecommunications, and bank service to Tigray, and reject the mediation of the AU. So, as things continue to rise up for Ethiopia, the fight still continues, especially with two leaders that are not willing to negotiate, which is sad for the citizens. It's really hard for the citizens. Just last Tuesday, the University of Mekele has been bombed, which is another strike, causing injuries and material damage. This strike comes after the government of Tigray set up a negotiation team and declared itself ready for peace talks. On Twitter, Kibram mentioned that Mekele was hit by a drone strike early in the morning. One injured person has arrived at Ader Hospital. The total number of victims is still yet to be counted, he wrote. Journalists did not have access to northern Ethiopia, and telecommunication networks there operate very randomly, making independent and verification impossible. A lot of these are very hard for them to verify without the telecommunication and the journalists to enter. The Ethiopian government has not yet officially responded. The fighting in northern Ethiopia has been taking place since August 24, with both sides still blaming each other. Yeah, there's definitely not going to be a good solution to that, because when two sides are pointing fingers, then they're too focused on blaming each other instead of trying to find a solution. So we hope things get better for Ethiopia very, very soon, or anytime soon. Now moving on to the Horn of Africa. So this drought that is causing famine and is also causing lives for the people in the Horn of Africa. The Horn of Africa continues to suffer with historical drought. This is not new. This has been going on for a while, and things continue to get worse each season. Where the risk of famine is growing due to failed raining season, reported by the UN Agency World Meteorology Organization on about 2 weeks ago. So, as some of the spokeswomen have reported, you have heard a lot from humanitarian agencies about the terrible drought in the Horn of Africa. Unfortunately, you are going to hear even more about it in the coming weeks and months as the drought continues. This was reported by Claire Nellis at a regular press briefing in Geneva. The lookout continues for November and December, which is the next few months to come. Now, how do we celebrate kings and queens in Africa still? South Africa still got it. So they have crowned a new king on about a week ago. Misuzulu Kazuwalitini was crowned a year and a half after his father, Goodwill Duwasalini, passed away from COVID-19. Thousands of South African Zulus erupted in celebration on their new king in a rural part of the KwaZulu-Natal province on Saturday. There were some controversies there. Ceremony, as some members of the royal family reject his nomination, preferring other siblings out of the late king's 28 children. Now, that's a common battle. I mean, when you have that many children, you can expect a lot of disagreement and a lot of arguments of who is to be crowned. But you know, as they always say, the firstborn always gets the birthright. And the one child that is selected to be crowned as the king is the one that won it among all the 28 children. Mrs. Zuli said, I know that you are aware of the state of the royal family in recent times. Whatever you heard in the media and the comments being made by those disrupting the throne, do not listen to them. It's a family matter. The traditional rites included sacred moments such as a lion hunt and the entrance to the cattle corral on a sacred place where the soon-to-be king is presented to the ancestors. President Cyril Ramaphosa recognized the 47-year-old king as heir to the throne and should later in the year certify the crowning. If the king of the country's largest ethnic group has no executive power, he holds great authority over its more than 100 million years. That is great. Congratulations to the king. Even the government or the president of the country is willing to certify it and accept it and allow these people to have their own king, to live the traditional way of their ancestors as well. So at least we know some of those are still being held in the African countries and cultures as well. Now, to tell you guys about what happened in New York Fashion Week, probably many of you have, a lot of Fashion Week is one of the big four. You have New York Fashion Week, you have Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, and London Fashion Week. So those big four are one of the biggest events. It's like the Super Bowl of the fashion industry. This is where all the buyers, the marketers, the sellers, they come to watch for the next designs that they want in their store. And it's also an opportunity for designers to present their work in front of these buyers and sellers so that they get an opportunity for their work to be manufactured, distributed into stores, franchised, branched out, or to be able to have their design worn by celebrities that goes to these other major events like the Super Bowl, Emmy Award, Grammy Award, Oscar, you name it. So New York Fashion Week is just one of them, the Super Bowl of the fashion industry. Now, this is where models get to have their dreams come true, agencies running around to have their models be casted into the next runway walk for these, top designers. So once a designer makes it into the New York Fashion Week, you are considered a top designer. And then from there, you work your way up to become a top brand. So the smaller brands are like the rookie of the industry. So until they continue to push their way up, they get their media attention, their press. Eventually, someone in the big industry will wear the designs and a buyer or sellers will be able to distribute their stuff. So it is an ongoing process. Is like once you enter in, there's still many other dreams to break down. But with that ongoing process, there's still a lot more steps to reach into. So I want to say, as a fashion designer in the fashion industry, this is the first year newbie collection has been presented in New York Fashion Week, in the Big Four, in the primetime New York Fashion Week. Now, prime times are usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, starting at 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock is the primetime New York. This is where the important people comes. So it was a very, very wonderful experience. There was a lot of things I probably did not expect. The story, I spent about 4 hours deleting photos and videos from my phone just so I have everything ready for New York. And come to find out that you really don't need your phone because there's hundreds and hundreds of photographers everywhere. And so now that after New York Fashion Week, you immediately get bombarded with all the images, the articles from content creators, bloggers, influencers. And if you make the cut, your stuff will be posted in most of these articles. So kudos to Newbie Collections. So there has been tons of million posts on there, especially on, social media with Instagram, Facebook, especially Instagram. Instagram is like the fashion world of the social media. So anything that's going on in the fashion world, you'll find it on Instagram, whether it is real videos or just regular photos. So those are the wonderful things I have learned and experienced about New York Fashion Week. And also to be grateful to be working with a runway production. Another thing to be aware of with New York Fashion Week is there's different shows, but they're all under the umbrella of New York Fashion Week. So the production that I had worked with is Runway 7 Fashion, and they have been absolutely amazing in all of their productions. The venue is at Sony Hall, one of the most historical venue, so phenomenal, so amazing. And the crowd, we had over 1,000 people. Now, if you haven't seen any content from New York Fashion Week from Newbie Collections, I would say go on Instagram, Instagram Newbie Collections. You guys will see majority of the contents there. And we made the cut to be covered by one of the Getty Images. So Getty Images are the world-renowned photographers, the #1 photographers in the world. They have shot many images from school graphic books, textbooks, to geographic, to, cultures, and they also have a segment for fashion as well, so which is under art and entertainment. And many of them are the #1 to capture pictures from celebrities as well, and major events. That's where they are at, because many of these I would say magazines and newspapers, whenever they want to write an article, they go to Getty Images, and then they use those for commercial use as well. So that's a really big plus on that. So I would say go on Instagram. You will see all the buzz that's been going on in New York Fashion Week. Now, that is a big move, and that is a one big door open for Newbie Collection as well. So for me as a designer, I'm very grateful. I'm very happy for this opportunity. Obviously, it wasn't easy. New York Fashion Week is one of those experiences you never think you would make it there, right? So now that I've seen it, I've experienced it, I know what it's like, the whole perspective change. It changes from one step, what is the next step, what is to come, and it gives you a lot more ideas of what to do, how to really push on there. So the light is getting brighter. So, as you go forward, at least you have those connections. So if you were to do any shows or participate, they've already recognized you, they know who you are, so it's easier to make connections. You know what they said, your network is your net worth. So in the entertainment industry, it's really all about who you know and who you're connected to. So I'm very grateful for the connection that Newbie Collection has. And so for many of us Africans there, I gotta admit, there was barely any Africans, unless you know someone who is showcasing there. You could count them, one, two, three Africans that were there. But there were a lot of Europeans, there were a lot of Asians, especially behind the scenes, and majority of the New Yorkers that were there. People travel from all over the world, including the United States as well. So in the we hope to see more Africans there supporting their African designers who makes it in the industry. And that is one of the downfall I like to mention, is, when we have someone representing our African background into these big and major events, it's a huge respect for Africa. It's a huge respect for that nationality or that tribe or that culture, and for that community as well. So we hope to see more Africans in these big major ones, especially those that have money, those that are pretty much, up there and have their own companies and entrepreneurs that are doing successful things. So And now that back to Minnesota, we get back to our regular life. Well, not regular life. You have to keep pushing. This is where the work gets more intense. So I would say check it out on Instagram, Newbie Collections, or, just kind of get an observe of New York Fashion Week. So New York Fashion Week is definitely a one event that is filled with so many people, so many things to do. There is a show in every block, and people are dressed up and ready to go out at 12 in the afternoon, which goes until 2 a.m. in the morning for the after party. So you dress to impress, you dress as you want, and whether you're dining or you're just hanging out with your friends, you never know who's going to stop you, because there are a lot of content creators, a lot of influencers, a lot of photographers that are there ready to capture something unique and something different. So that is it for New York Fashion Week. And thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week.
Du nouveau à Minneapolis, Tempo Afrique Travel. Vous voulez voyager? Achetez vos billets d'avion à l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, pas de problème de connexion, pas de problème de transfert de vol. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, c'est le voyage en toute tranquillité, en toute beauté, de votre maison jusqu'à votre destination. Votre satisfaction est notre plaisir.